Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Welcome back to this episode of Bitch Sesh. We have Grace Stuart joining us today, and she is the host of the podcast, Why She Stayed, and she is a survivor and advocate herself. Welcome to the show, Grace. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here and just get to chat about everything.
It's so important, right? These conversations, brave women like you stepping up and sharing your story and getting it out there and having the courage to talk and not stay silent and to be the voice for the voiceless is such an important mission that you're on. And I'm so grateful to you. And so many women are being able to listen and feel validated and seen and heard. And what you're doing is beautiful. So thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm a big believer that we really learn through storytelling when it comes to abuse, domestic violence, because when you hear that other person's personal experience, it kind of sets off that light bulb in your head, whether you're still in it or whether you're out of it for a while. I think storytelling is honestly everything in this space.
And in your experience, since you've started the show, are you finding that these experiences are very similar to each other?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's interesting. They all have the same common themes and the same similar textbook things that we experience, but all in different variations. And I always preface when I do my episodes on Why She Stayed, I preface like, try to resist the urge to compare your story to someone else's and think, oh, if my abuser didn't do this or that, it must not be what I think it is. That can really confuse you. But instead, we got to look at the common themes that run through. It's all scarily similar, honestly. It's scary sometimes.
I love the name of your podcast because it is like almost the first question everybody asks, like, why'd you stay? If it was so bad, why did you stay? And you're just like literally just getting straight.
Like, here's why we stayed.
To the point.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrestled with that title for a while, but ultimately it made sense because we're breaking that stigma and we're just showing up and saying it like it is.
Mm-hmm. And so let's start at the beginning of your story.
Yeah, so I was in an abusive relationship. I met him back in 2018. And my ex was actually 14 years older than me. You might say that was like the first red flag. But, you know, at the time when I was 20, that was a lot. And I met him. He was a personal trainer. I met him in that environment. And we just started chatting. And it really moves fast from there. When you're in an abusive relationship or you're just starting to fall into it, it tends to be very fast paced. So it was not a ton of love bombing from the start, but it moved rapidly at the same time. And I would say I got hooked into it pretty quickly. And so I always warn people when we talk about trauma bonding, a trauma bond can form right from those first few interactions with them. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take much, especially when you're younger, I believe. So we met in that circumstance, and I never would have, the word abuse never would have crossed my mind for honestly several years. My ex had issues with addiction. So I always saw things in terms of, is he sober or is he not sober? That's kind of how the relationship was measured versus, wait a minute, I think he's controlling. Like it was always, if he was doing good with his addiction, I considered things to be good. And if he wasn't, it was bad. But that was the totally wrong lens to see it through. That actually kept me so distracted from the coercive control. So it's tricky. We blame their mental health, we blame their upbringing, drinking, past experiences they've had, and we make excuses and we tend to have empathy for them. So I was basically trapped in empathy for so long, feeling like he was a victim to his circumstances. Meanwhile, I didn't even know what coercive control was at all.
It's fascinating. And you, like you said, you're an empath. And so you're thinking you can fix him.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I think it's not that I was addicted to the chaos of the situation. I was just so hopeful for the change. It always felt like we were right on the cusp of things getting better. And it felt like us against the problem instead of him being the problem and having that controlling nature. So as time went on, I started to notice the mistreatment coming out through a lot of like coercive behaviors, a lot of just like invading my space and things that seemed slightly violent, but not full blown violence like I see on the domestic violence posters. Or, we think of domestic violence in terms of someone getting hit, like a punch or a black eye. And I didn't have that at the time. So I started to notice some controlling behaviors coming out. He always seemed mad at me for something, whether it was something little. You're just like, you get this feeling like, why can't I do anything right? Why can't I get it right? So you become convinced that you're the problem and that you can fix it if you just try hard enough to be perfect. You can, you think we'll finally get the relationship on track. And that's why I always thought this is just a relationship problem. This is not any other problem. I thought it was communication or attachment styles or different things like that. And it has nothing to do with that.
Did they make it sure you believed that you were a poor communicator?
I think he did. He mainly made me believe that if I just looked a little bit of a certain way, or I don't know, worked harder in the gym, or had like changed things about myself, then it would keep his attention and make the relationship better. So, but
Like
also the
devaluing
communication
you and valuing you.
Yeah, it starts off with that chase of them valuing you, and then they pull it out from under you, and you're like, wait, where did that go? So there was a lot of triangulation with like other women, and they just always make you feel like you're not quite doing enough. And I think, as far as the communication, what most women struggle with is, yes, they are being convinced, well, this is just communication that we have to go to therapy for. Maybe if we get couples counseling, and that's the worst thing you can do with them. I learned that the hard way.
Well, isn't it fascinating too that a relationship that's very new is all of a sudden needing counseling? And you're like, we don't really we shouldn't really have any problems that need to sort out. And if we do, we should not be together. Like in a normal relationship, you see those red flags and you say, this isn't working and I'm going to leave that relationship. But when you're in a trauma bond or you're in some sort of coercive relationship, you think all the problems are you, and then they're the ones pushing therapy, and therapy is just never going to work, but it sounds hopeful. It sounds like a normal thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that drives a lot of survivors the most crazy, is thinking it's just about incompatibility. So they try harder to be more compatible with their perpetrator, thinking that they're going to get that love bombing phase back. And I think some of them are most afraid that it's just incompatibility, because it makes you feel like, well, why am I not enough for them? And it makes you worried that another woman's going to come along, right? Because they're always triangulating you and all these things, and that she's going to reap everything that I wanted with him or that he promised me. It sounds crazy, but that is one of the biggest fears that I hear from survivors, and I talk to hundreds and hundreds. So
it's true. That is, I was about to say, that's what we hear over here too. And that's what I felt personally, was like, I'm going to put in all this work and somebody else is going to reap the benefits. And the person that they show you in that love bombing, if you could do whatever you can do to get back to that. So you've talked a lot about, like something you once believed in, like loyalty. So, you were like loyal to a fault.
Yeah. I always say I was like toxically loyal. And it's interesting because they accuse you constantly of being the most unloyal person to them. They accuse you of everything that they're actually doing. But I became so hooked into that cycle that I was willing to almost lose anything to it. It really behaved on the brain like an addiction because the more they're intermittently being kind and cruel at the same time, it actually creates an addictive cycle in the brain. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and it's just so powerful. So I became willing to lose anyone to it. Like as I started losing friends because I was seeing them less, or I was being isolated by him, really, I started to not care as much. And that's really I mean, it was still painful. I still cared about those people, but I didn't have the capacity because I was just surviving what I was going through. But it was scary realizing no matter how bad it got, it was still so hard to walk away.
That's what's wild, because I love that you're highlighting that it is an addiction that you're now going through. And like all addicts, it thrives in chaos. And so these pathological people create very chaotic situations from a day to a month to a year to a conversation. And when you're in this chaos, you're trying, as you're on the hamster wheel, trying to unpack just something, like one of those many things. And we all sort of know that nothing really gets sorted out. Nothing really gets resolved. There's a lot of circle thinking, word salads that designed to question your reality. And you're like, by the time you get back to that person who's back in the romance stage, you just want to forget all the other shit. That's like, okay, forget it. Now they're great again. So I'm hopeful. So you're in this
Exactly.
hopeful situation. Did you find that every time you ended up back in the love stage again, did the game change? Did the rules change? Did it become more dangerous? Was he in and out of like the cycle of abuse faster as you spent more time together?
I feel like the more times that I tried to exit the relationship and then I returned again, I ended up getting punished for that. As much as he wanted to mend things, you end up getting punished because now they don't trust you even more because you tried to leave them. That's why the cycle of abuse tends to get tighter and tighter, because their control goes up if you try to wiggle out, but then you come back because they sucked you back in or for whatever reason. On the back end, it usually gets worse. And by the way, when it gets worse, that can also look like their behavior is just becoming more covert. It's not always they become worse in their physical violence or overt violence. Sometimes they get worse with just the mind games to kind of keep you where they want you, thinking that they've changed. And what happened was I just basically feel like I went insane, honestly. I truly went insane. I just I ended up marrying him even after some of the worst incidents. Some of the most like violent things that took place. We got married after all of that because he had me so wound up in that cycle. There were times he got me involved in his addiction, not like using together, but he put me in situations where I could have gotten in trouble or been in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's scary what a survivor can go through when you're being coercively controlled. It's not just about coercion, like sexual coercion or things like that. It encompasses so much. You can find yourself in a situation you never imagined. But still, even when he got me involved in his addiction, the word abuse still never crossed my mind. I just thought, I'm dealing with a guy who's kind of crazy.
Was he more violent when he was using?
Yes, that is when the most scary situations happened, when he was using.
So physically and otherwise?
It was more physical violence through like sexual violence was what happened. So, and then one time there was an episode of physical violence regarding strangulation when he got arrested. that was at the very end. And this was all under the influence. So I spent so much time thinking, I guess it's just the drugs. But it wasn't, because even outside of that, it was the constant questioning, the accusations, the isolation, the whole cycle.
The standard issue of abuse, like their playbook of how they just move through random Tuesday. And
yeah.
So you married him. And I've been there, got out as well. So it's like and it's hard to say it out loud and go like, all this shit happened and I still married them. And that can only be really justified. Like you were saying, you went crazy yourself. Like you were not in your right capacity.
Absolutely. I mean, it really makes you feel like you're stuck between two options that both don't make sense. Staying and going, they feel equally painful. And usually leaving them feels way more painful because you literally have to go through withdrawal when you leave them. At least that was my experience. When I finally got out, which was after he was arrested for domestic violence, I still almost went back after that. And I had to go through this period of literally feeling like I was dying, trying to just detach. So for anybody who's going through that, it's normal to feel that way. And I would say to anybody, like, it's hard to leave them without feeling that guilt and feeling like you're almost like betraying your best friend, because they feel like both your perpetrator and your lover and your best friend. So usually there's a time period where you have to push through that guilt and be like, I'm doing it this time. I'm not going back. And that's the hardest part.
Hey besties, it's Lindsay from Bitch is a Bad Word podcast, and Cozy Earth sent me the most amazing sheets ever. They are soft, they are silky, they keep me cool, and the color is so stunning. They've got your back with a 40% off coupon using our code word BESTIES at checkout. They've got sheets, towels, pajamas, everything you need to turn your home into a sanctuary at CozyEarth.com. If they offer you a post-purchase survey, let them know that you heard about Cozy Earth right here on Bitch is a Bad Word podcast. Check them out, CozyEarth.com, 40% off using our code word BESTIES. So if you don't mind, let's go back to the conversation and the night or the day of the strangulation, because as you are aware, and maybe some of our besties are not, strangulation is one of the key indicators of murder. Like full stop, no sugarcoating it. If they are willing to put their hands around your neck and restrict your access to air, they have a higher likelihood of killing you in the future.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, he was not arrested for strangulation. He was arrested for domestic violence assault, and then he ended up getting a charge for violating bail conditions later down the line. But what happened was he was intermittently grabbing me by the throat for short increments that night. And that really scared me. Why are you grabbing me by the throat when you're angry? Right? So that I consider that to be strangulation, even though he wasn't arrested for that. The biggest question women ask me is, well, what if it was like a quick grab? Well, it's the danger of the statistic lies in the message that they're sending you, which is I have the power to take away your breath and I'm holding your life in my hands. That's the message he's trying to send when he does that. And he ended up punching the wall next to my face that night, next to where I was standing. He launched himself at me and punched the wall next to my face, and I ran out of the house. And my neighbors called 911 because I was stuck outside without my shoes, my phone, my keys. He locked me out of the house. And notice he punched the wall. That's what they do first. When they're hitting things around you or slamming things around you, they're actually sending you the message of how much they want to hit you. And it's uncomfortable to say it that way, but I do it to drive a point home. Eventually it does escalate.
It escalates. And if they're punching the wall, if they're throwing their cell phone at you, if they are breaking your things that are important to you, these are all messages, and they're not red flags. They're like They are messages.
They are the violence.
They are
That's
the violence.
already the violence.
Yeah. So, and we, I was speaking to somebody, she's the district attorney here, and she was talking about strangulation, and she was asking me to talk more about it on the show in the way of like post strangulation effects on women that I was not aware of. And she suggests anybody who's been strangled goes and has a head scan because there's like post strangulation deaths that happen. That you don't die that during the strangulation, but you pass afterwards from.
You can be at risk for stroke or other things. Yeah.
It's really important. Like it's not, and not only the message that we're saying, their intent is to kill you, or their intent is to scare you enough to be submission to do whatever they want you to do. However it goes down, it's not right. And you need to protect yourself.
Yeah, I read an article online by a researcher, and he was saying that most abusers don't initially strangle to kill. They strangle to show that they can kill. So the danger, it all lies in that message, whether they grab you quick and hold you for a second. Like, why are they grabbing you by the throat? It's
So he gets arrested that night, and you're locked out of the house. Did you bail him out of jail?
I think I tried. No, I didn't try that night, but I tried to drop the restraining order because that's often how the victim's brain behaves. We feel like we betrayed them and we want to make it better. But no, he was in jail for a few days, but when he got out, we had a no contact order in place, which he eventually started breaking through. But I always say the acronym FOG. What I dealt with was fear, obligation, and guilt. I mean, I was crushed by it. I worried that I was over-exaggerating, lying. They'll even have you thinking that you're the abuser and you just wanted them to go to jail to get back at them or something. I mean, they make you feel totally spun out, totally psychotic. I mean, I truly felt like, am I a narcissist? Like, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I was so confused.
I love that acronym because I would describe it as looking through a screen, and I couldn't describe it any other way. I'm like, I feel like I'm looking through like a screen all the time, just like a window screen. Nothing's clear. That's fog. That's beautiful.
And I think the biggest misconception about domestic abuse is people think that every victim believes they like deserve it, but really we actually tend to believe that we're literally causing it. It's not that we believe we deserve to be mistreated just for reasons within ourselves. We literally think we're propelling the cycle and we're like the initial cause. So I thought, am I causing this? I felt sorry for him. And when he violated the no contact order, I started breaking through it too, because it was hard to keep that no contact. Eventually, what helped me, what broke me free for good was after we started talking again after his arrest, it really shocked me. Like, oh my gosh, I'm really going to go back. I'm really about to go back to this guy who has showed me he's literally what he's capable of. And I knew when I went back, I could get pregnant. We would be taking the next steps in life because I knew that was going to be his first top of mind thing to put me on lockdown further. And I just finally the fear of leaving, finally the fear of staying became greater than the fear of leaving. And that's when I was like, you know what? I want you to follow your no contact order. I did that as a test. Like, hey, it would really show me if you've changed if you follow your court order. That would be great. Of course, he didn't. I told him time and time again, follow your court order. And eventually I reported him for violating his bail and he got arrested again. And that's when he stopped bothering me.
I hope everyone's listening because the court order is a piece of paper. It's not some magical shield that protects you. You are the protectant of yourself. You have to exercise your duty. If you want to keep yourself protected, they're protected. No one's going to know that they're breaching that wall unless you report it. But I'm hearing you let it go on for like a while. And that's what, and victims do. you feel guilty. I'm the one, if you have children with somebody, you're like, I'm the one that's going to put my kid's dad in jail. That's serious guilt. There's nothing worse than that thought. I promise you. That said, these people, they're the ones in control of their behavior, and they're the ones that are violating. They're the ones that are in trouble. But they almost play with you. Like, he knows you're not going to, I bet he was so she actually did it.
Oh yeah. He got home from work that day and the police showed up and arrested him. They have to arrest them when you have proof that they're violating that no contact order, the protective order, they really have to make an arrest. And they did. But what I would want people to hear from this is that notice how I had to bear that feeling up front of, it feels like I'm telling my best friend's secret. It feels like I'm outing him. I had a million what ifs going on in my brain, but I knew, how else am I going to get out of this? He has a court order that he's supposed to follow. And they're still showing you by violating it and continuing to put that pressure on you, even if it's masked as kindness. Like, hey, I'm just thinking about you. Can you just give me an answer on where we stand? That's their way of pressuring you still. But the confusion is the hallmark of abuse. The confusion that you feel in itself, that's actually the symptom that you are being abused. So when you start to think, oh my gosh, am I overthinking it? The fact that you worry that you're a fake or that you've somehow made it up, that is proof of the work they have done on your mind, the control.
They're master manipulators. And I love that you even say this too, like breaking down. If you have a restraining order in place and the person being restrained is being sweet, you're like, well, here, they've changed. So they're like in that cycle, but that is a breaking of that order. So it doesn't have to be that they've come and they're nasty to you in a message, or they've come to your work, or they've come that's also breaking the order. But sometimes it's important to hear that they can be their nicest and their most kind while they're still expected to be restrained.
That's right. I mean, the message that I actually reported him on, and I had a log at this point of all the times he had been blowing up my phone and stuff, but the night I reported him was after he sent me a message that said, Grace, I'm still at work. We just had a blowout on the highway. He was driving trucks at that point in time. He wanted me to be fearful that they had gotten in some kind of accident because he wanted to provoke me to respond to the contact. Oh my gosh, I miss you so much. We just had this scary incident on the highway and I love you so much. I did not fall for it. I reported him on that. And the message was so nice. It was saying that he loved me and stuff. But here's the thing. I was well-versed enough by that point to know this is all part of it. This is not separate from the abuse. This is how he gets me back every time. And yeah, so you're not always going to get that golden ticket of them doing this really violent thing on the last straw, or like saying something so outrageous that you feel confident in reporting it. Sometimes you have to hold your ground even when they're being nice.
That's such an important message, because it's like, I mean, this man went to jail after saying he loved you. So imagine if you report the bad stuff. And I mean, I didn't report a single violation because I had such bad guilt. And then it ended up being flipped around, and I didn't make the right choice, which is why we have this show, is to really stand in this. Like, these people, your ex is not changing, not for you anyway. And your life is too precious to stick around and find out the answer to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, they really stay the same. There's a reason we all say the same thing. They don't change for the next person. So if someone is fearing that right now, that the moment you get up from that chair and walk away, he's going to suddenly give someone else everything else, that's not how it works. They continue doing it because the behavior works for them. They feel that it benefits them, and it's the path of least resistance. When they go to therapy or these abuser programs, it usually makes their entitlement worse. Then they feel even more deserving of your promise, and it's a never-ending loop. So So it's hard.
So what made you, like, why were you so addicted to him? What was it? What was the, initial attraction?
Well, he was a very charming person, very outgoing. He could just kind of draw people in. I feel like there was a lot of like hype around him, right? Like other people wanted him, and there was this like illusion of high competition, which is obviously a problem. Like you shouldn't, there's issues where, should you be attracted to that? Here, wait, let me back up. So there was that illusion of high competition, and I think that just created such this false view of him where it seemed like he was the prize and something to be chased after, and that wasn't the truth of who they are. So usually they're going to present to be someone that they're not, and that's what you're constantly chasing to get back to that initial high. I think the addictive part is the fact that there were so many highs and lows. Like I said in the beginning, that intermittent reinforcement, that's what really did it. Because they bring you up so high and then they make you feel like dirt. And it's like you just want so badly to get their affection back.
Did you ever find that he was the most charming, most amazing version of himself in public? And you like would look outside of your relationship almost, like, if that makes sense?
He was definitely, so it was that outer self where he was one way around other people. Like on our honeymoon, he was like the best guy at the resort. He was making friends, but behind closed doors, that was some of the worst abuse that happened was on our honeymoon. So he would always be one way on the outside, but a completely different way behind closed doors. And that's how most of them are.
You're just like, if we can live our entire life in public, then this will work.
Exactly. If we never have to go home. And I think the other big thing was he would always act mad at me after he mistreated me. So the quickest way for them to manipulate you is not giving you any opportunity to be angry with them, because that puts the attention back on them. So anytime an incident would happen of some kind of abuse, whether it be emotional, verbal, physical, I would end up being the one comforting him by the end of it. So that's how you know you're being manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like they have violated you in such a way, and yet you're trying to calm them down and saying, no, I promise you're not a monster. We can make it work again. They've manipulated you.
That is such a powerful statement you're making, because that is exactly what it is. You are coddling the devil, and that doesn't make sense. I think that even I would imagine while you're doing it, there's parts of your brain that is like, Grace, none of this is tracking. None of it is tracking. But you're in that like healing phase. And then you're like, you can't imagine abandoning someone at their worst moment. But their worst moment is when they've just treated you horribly.
Exactly. So we put ourselves in those shoes and we have such empathy for them. The other thing is, if by the time you're done talking about something with them, and you're now talking about your reaction instead of what they did, they've manipulated you. Like if by the end of one of those circular arguments, you're no longer talking about whatever his behavior was, but the focus is now what your reaction to that was, that's classic.
You're left feeling like nothing got resolved. Like, did you just find yourself like, I just give up? Okay.
Just, exhausted. I mean, another big question I get from survivors is about like reactive abuse. And I don't really like that term. I prefer to use other things, but it's like they will push you to such a point where you start behaving in similar ways, or you start lashing out, and now you feel like you're abusive. Mm-hmm. So they push you to a breaking point, or your abuser will even start recording you acting crazy when they think they got you. They make you feel like you're the one who needs mental health help. And it's just, oh my gosh. He wanted me to go to a program and get my anxiety right. Meanwhile, they're the one causing your anxiety.
Right. You're not on any anxiety issues after you leave. Like, you're like, wow, my mental health is better. My physical health is better. I personally was on like 2 things for like thyroid, like mystery autoimmune problems that went away after I left. And that's a huge message of like the amount of stress. We don't even know like what our body's gone through and our mind while you're trying to navigate all this.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
So did you have a hard time like working? Like you gave up your friends and family, I would imagine. Did anybody at any point say, Grace, what the actual are you doing? Get the hell out of there. Or did you lie to everybody about the fantasy?
I mean, I lied to people so that I would feel like I had full control over when I could leave, because the last thing I wanted was if I disclosed everything to friends, I knew they would try to force me out before I was ready, which then would cause me to isolate more because I would say you have to let the survivor drive the bus. If you know they're being abused, the best thing is you can tell them you don't like the way they're being treated and you think it's abuse, but you have to give them the reins, or else they're gonna push you to the side because they're surviving what they're surviving. So there were times when I couldn't function at work. I lost a job. I mean, I was just in shambles. I couldn't keep up with responsibilities. I would say also, like, leading up to the wedding, my family started coming down on me really hard about like, don't do this. They were having like interventions about not moving forward with the marriage, but I was so far off still from being ready to walk away. So yes, people were viciously saying, what the hell are you doing? But I just kept pressing because that's the mind games.
Do you have anything in like, we're all trying to figure out why are we attracted to these kind of people? Did you have a childhood trauma or experience where you're like, yep, that's my identifier. I know exactly why I'm with this person.
Yeah, I've never really explained that in detail, and maybe I will down the line. But the gist of it is that I wanted someone who was like hyper masculine, like that really outer masculine energy kind of vibe. Like I really gravitated towards that for many reasons. And I still want that strong person. I just view it differently now. Now I look for a healthy masculinity because I know more of what that entails now versus someone, I think abusive people, again, they have that illusion of this external Mr. Confident, Mr. Know what he wants. So you perceive it as that masculine, that polarity. It created like this nice polarity. And unfortunately, you can run into the wrong person if you're chasing that too much. But I think it was really that. And there's reasons that was a strong thing for me. But, maybe I'll share that at some point. But it was that external way about him.
And then do you find that, well, one question first. How many times did you leave before you finally left?
I would count all like the little attempts I made too. So sometimes I would mentally resolve to leave. I'd pack all my bags, but then I wouldn't go through with it. I would say probably about maybe like 10 or 11 times total where I actually was like, I'm packing, I'm going to do this. And then I wouldn't, or maybe I would, and then I would come back. It was probably about that. The average is like 7 or 8 times for a survivor to leave. So I think I fell around that point.
You're an overachiever.
Yeah. Yes, I love it.
And you have to, so you're sitting here and you seem, from what I've listened to on your show, from like your messaging now, I mean, you're very much aware. You have an awareness to you that, of what you were in was real and what you are willing to accept is so different. So where's the hope for women that are in an abusive relationship that may be listening and they're on the fence? What kind of hope can we give them that life can and will be better?
Yeah, I think the hope is that you will fully recover from it. You're not going to feel that addiction to the situation forever. You're not going to feel drawn to this person forever. You're not going to be buried in the shame, the guilt. Like those things get better with time and healing and therapy and all kinds of strategies that you can use. But you're not going to be buried by it forever. But when you're initially leaving, it really feels that way. So I always say you really have to build like this internal case for yourself. You have to reground yourself in reality and go back to the evidence. So I encourage people, write things down that are happening as soon as you can. If you can keep a little note in your phone, you want to document things that they're saying and doing because you're going to need to revert back to that in order to heal and get out of it for good. You need like hardcore evidence of what life was like with them to remind yourself why you're leaving. So the hope is if you're in that addictive cycle, I promise that will go away. I mean, I was willing to wreck my whole life because that's how strong it was. And today, it's not there. It's not there. So I had to do a lot of healing and all kinds of stuff. But the hope is that, and it might be challenging to get away for some people. There's so much like post-separation abuse. I dealt with that a little bit, but that you can use tools to get through that as well.
And were you successful? Like, were you, you had to did you get a divorce right away? Was he in jail when you got a divorce? Like how did you work through that?
So I filed for divorce after he got arrested for the second time. So after I reported him for violating the no contact order, he got arrested for like a few days and then he got out of jail again. At that point, he stopped contacting me because he didn't want to get arrested again. During that time frame, I had moved back with my family already to my hometown. So I filed for divorce while I had that protective order in place. And after he knew this is what happens when you violate it, I did it during that time so that he couldn't say anything. Because I knew I was at risk for manipulation and getting sucked back in if he had access to me. So I chose to file for divorce while he was kind of kept quiet. And we just spoke through lawyers and we finalized it quickly because we didn't have kids and we didn't have like many shared assets. We were only married for a year. So it was like nothing to really undo. But I would recommend, like, you got to use that protective order if you have one. You're using it as a tool. So the way I utilized it was just keeping him at bay while I did what I needed to, not to trick anyone, but to get out because I knew I was at risk otherwise.
Use it as a tool, not a weapon.
Correct.
And that's what it's designed to do. So if you have one and you've been granted one, there was a reason why it was given to you. And I think that when you're granted one, it feels so like there's a big release, like but then with that, like you were saying, there's a lot of guilt and that is not your burden to carry. That is, they did that. They created the situation that they're in. That is a them thing, not a you thing. And we really just need to help women understand that they're not the reason.
Yeah.
Just be good, God, and be good, and this shit doesn't happen.
The other thing that helped was knowing what to expect. So the more that you know what to expect, the more you can predict, the more you can mitigate. So I knew by this point that I was going to feel the guilt and I was going to face certain emotions. That's how I got through those emotions. The more well-versed you become with what the manipulation sounds like, mostly with the I'm sorries, the it'll never happen again, the more well-versed you become on hearing the manipulation and how textbook it is, then you can move past it. The no contact wasn't just to protect me from violence, it was to protect me from the I'm sorries. So you have to look at it that way.
Yeah, all the shiny things that they're like, oh, look, I'll be better. I'll go to therapy. I'll stop doing drugs. I'll stop seeing strippers. I'll do all the things that I'll be the best ever. And here's some gifts or something to prove it that I'm going to break later.
Exactly.
Well, I think you are an absolute baddie. I just love that you've taken this tragedy that you lived through. And I mean, a year probably felt like 8 million years. I can't.
Well, we were together for like 4 or 5 years altogether.
Okay.
But yeah, a year married about.
Yeah. So good for you for just getting out and then using your voice to empower other women. I think that that's just so amazing. And I wish you the greatest success on your show because it's such a powerful tool and it's important. It's a matter of great public importance right now. And women need to see that, it doesn't look like you said, it doesn't look like the poster of standing in the domestic violence office or, in the courtroom or what we were grown up like taught that it looks like. It doesn't look like that. And violence can happen to anybody. And you're well-spoken, you're beautiful, you're educated, you're like you check all the boxes that should suggest that you're insulated.
Right. People think it looks a certain way and it doesn't. It looks like anything.
Yeah. Well, Grace, thank you so much for coming on this episode of Bitch Sesh. I really look forward to talking to you more and helping spread the message with you to all the women who need to hear it. And you're a baddie. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Bitches being bad.